Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
This the monster from the swamps, Regis Prograis.
Hey, what's up? This is King Carlos Molina, former IBF world champ.
This is Michael, the Bounty Hunter, 2012 Olympian and your people's champ.
This is Charlie Edwards, flyweight champion of the world.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 210 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host, Joey Coastman. I'm joined, as always, by the elusive, the infamous Mr. Ayaz Sumra. Ayaz, how you doing?
I'm good, Joe. Yourself?
Very good, my friend. Very good. Just to give the listeners a bit of an insight, a lot of the time we record these podcasts sometimes on a Tuesday, stuff like that. And by the Tuesday, honestly, a lot of the time we've got no clue whatsoever which guests we're going to get on that week. So it all kind of comes together at the last minute. We've been lucky to get at least two guests on for a number of shows in a row now. A couple times back in the day, you know, I think there was maybe one or two episodes where we had no guests on, and there's been a couple times we've had one guest on and stuff like that. But we've done pretty good actually to secure two. But as I speak to you right now, I've got absolutely no idea who the guests are going to be, but I hope you enjoy them. We're recording this on the Tuesday evening here. Anyway, let's start with the review part of last week's action. Let's start on Friday, the 18th of October. There's nowhere else really to start, to be honest, apart from the Liacouras Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, USA. A top-ranked show, obviously. Let's start with the undercard. Just really one fight to mention on the undercard, to be honest. Luis Collazo tried to get his 40th win, but it wasn't to be for him. It was a technical decision. He actually lost in the 10th round, which was the final round, but he had a cut so bad over his right eye, it was caused by an accidental head clash, that they had to stop the fight then and there, so they couldn't even see it out. So it ended up being a technical decision over 10 rounds in favour there of his opponent, Quadratillo Abdukakarov. I think that's how it's said. He's now 17-0. Luis Collazo 39-8. You know, got to respect Luis Collazo. He'll pretty much fight anyone, and he's a tough guy. I've written him off many times. It's kind of hard to know where his level's at. He's been at that top level, and then he's obviously dropped since then. But you can throw him in with a prospect, and he'll beat him. So he's one of those guys. He's a dangerous type of fighter, even at this point in his career. As for his opponent there, Quadratillo, many big fights for him down the line, but I don't think he's a world beater in my honest opinion. Talking about the main event though, the brilliant fight that we got to see between Alexander Gvozdyk, 17-0 going in against Artur Beterbiev, 14-0. Both men had a brilliant combined record, 28 knockouts between the pair in 31 fights. Artur Beterbiev once again defends his incredible 100% knockout streak, and he gets another knockout here, 15-0 with 15 knockouts. Obviously, he put his IBF World Light Heavyweight title on the line, and Gvozdyk put his WBC on the line. Interestingly, Gvozdyk was winning the fight on all three judges' scorecards. He was winning by 3 points on one. He was winning on two judges' scorecards. 3 points on one, 1 point on the other, and then the other judge had it 4 to Beterbiev. So cards all over the place kind of thing. Gvozdyk was down 3 times in that 10th and final round, but the actual fight itself, like I say, a brilliant fight. The first round, there was a controversial knockdown in the last few seconds. Other than that, Gvozdyk was keeping Beterbiev off balance. He wasn't letting him set himself. In my opinion, Gvozdyk was winning the round, and then of course that knockdown came, and I was getting ready to score it a 10-8 round, but of course when they looked at the replay, the commission or whatever actually overturned the knockdown, which I can't think off the top of my head I've seen in recent times. So it ended up, rather than a 10-8 to Beterbiev, it was a 10-9 to Gvozdyk. A bit of VAR there in boxing almost. Beterbiev did seem to have the heavier hands, though. You could see that straight away. The first round was a real active round. Beterbiev was circling to his right. Gvozdyk was jabbing upstairs and downstairs. Real nice jab to the body. He landed a few times, so it was good stuff there from Gvozdyk. Second round was a close round. I felt like Gvozdyk started well in the round, but in the second half of the round, Beterbiev started to land a few power shots, including one which actually made Gvozdyk hold on. I felt like it was a little bit controversial, but I actually gave the round to Beterbiev. I thought he just about nicked it. A lot of people disagreed, though. The third round, another round of the same pretty much, another real close round. Gvozdyk started well with the nice eye-catching shots. He was repeating what he'd done in the prior round by, landing nice shots to the head and body. But once again, Beterbiev finished the stronger, in my opinion. He just looked so strong, Beterbiev. Nothing seemed to really faze him. But again, for me, that was a Gvozdyk round. So 2-1 to Gvozdyk on my card. The fourth round, again, more of the same. I hate to say it. The rounds were close. That's why we saw the judges' scorecards at the end, and they were very different. Gvozdyk boxed nicely early on. He was using his feet brilliantly. He was applying smart pressure, but again, Beterbiev finished strong. I felt like the round was a bit clearer to score than the prior two similar rounds. Like, there was 3 similar rounds in a row for me, 2, 3, and 4. I felt like this one, though, the fourth one, was probably the easiest to score, and I gave it to Gvozdyk again. Again, this might sound real controversial to some people listening, but I had it 3-1 to Gvozdyk after 4. The fifth round, Beterbiev landed a straight right hand to the body of Gvozdyk, and it looked like a horrible, horrible shot. He did it again pretty much straight after. Gvozdyk was taking big-looking shots. Beterbiev really has got that thudding power. Every shot that he throws is with bad intentions, and certainly for me it was a Beterbiev round. He finished strong once again. Sixth round was a crazy round. Beterbiev once again landed a monster shot, a monster right hand to the body that made Gvozdyk get on his bike. This time Gvozdyk did finish the round quite well. He seemed to buckle the leg of Beterbiev momentarily as well. I think that was a little bit unnoticed, by the commentary team. Beterbiev came straight back though. He shook off if he was hurt, he shook it off pretty quickly. And like I say, down went Gvozdyk this time, but this time it was actually ruled a slip. I don't know if they showed a clear replay of that one, because I thought it might have looked a little bit I can't remember, because again there was 2 knockdowns. One was given, one wasn't. They were both apparently for slips, and in the end the one that was given got overruled. I can't remember which one it was, but I think this one looked like a bit of a legitimate one to me. I don't think they showed too many replays. If it wasn't though, then for me it was a Gvozdyk round. So 4-2. Now going into the second half of the fight, Beterbiev won that round for me. Gvozdyk didn't really do much in that round. Beterbiev kept him on the back foot for most of it. The 8th round, both men had moments, but for me it was a Beterbiev round. So I had it 4-4 after 8. In the 9th round, Beterbiev really started to wear Gvozdyk down. Beterbiev really took over in the last minute of the round, especially. He looked exhausted, to be honest, Gvozdyk, and he was eating massive shots. His mouth was wide open, sucking in the air. It was a big round for Beterbiev. So on my card, he turned it round 5-4. And I actually said to myself during the fight, I said, Beterbiev 10th round KO. It just came in my head, but I didn't put any money on it or anything. And in that 10th round, Gvozdyk was exhausted, to be honest. His defence was leaky. He was throwing shots. The hands weren't really coming back tight. His guard was, like I say, quite leaky. Beterbiev had so much more in the tank at that stage. The referee told Gvozdyk after the second knockdown that he'll give him one more chance, and then he was going to stop it. And to be honest, I liked that from the referee. Perhaps Beterbiev might have heard him say that, and that's probably why he went straight in for the kill. But the referee waved it off after that third knockdown. It was the right thing to do. All the knockdowns, to be honest, weren't from massive shots. I think exhaustion played a big part, but Beterbiev was really taking over, and I felt like the right man won. Like I say, even on my card, he turned it round. I had no problem with the stoppage. Credit to both fighters. Both men are real fighters. And in the post-fight interview, firstly, I was quite surprised by how good Beterbiev's English was. I didn't think he spoke any English at all. Either I've been living under a rock, or or he's not done many interviews in English. But anyway, after the fight, he did say he doesn't care about the names. He just cares about the belts. He doesn't really care who he fights. So that is a kind of refreshing mentality, if you like, as sad as it may seem. In boxing right now, everyone just wants the big money fights. He's an old school throwback type of guy. He just wants the belt. So that really means he wants Kovalev and he wants Bivol. So we should be in for some great fights, hopefully, if they get made. But he seems like he's up for it. So credit to him. And like I say, Gvozdyk, I think I've heard, I'm not 100% sure if it's true, but I heard he had to spend 2 days in hospital after the fight. So a little bit worrying there. But Beterbiev once again lets us know his power is very, very real. That's it for that one, though. Moving out now to the card that took place in Newcastle at the... what's the arena called over there again? I think it's the... I think it's just called the Newcastle Arena, to be honest. But let's start with the undercard. Martin Bakole got a 5th round TKO against Kevin Johnson. Kevin Johnson only had about 3 days' notice, to be honest. We knew who was going to win the fight. I suppose Bakole probably did well to get him out of there in 5 rounds, you know. He's quite a tough guy, Johnson. I think he'd only been stopped twice before. He only had about 3 days notice, like I say, so I didn't really expect too much from him, but he's so badly stuck in that sparring partner mentality, you know. It's kind of difficult to watch, you know. When he took on Bakole the other day, it was difficult to watch because he just prefers to tuck up and try and slip shots instead of throw anything himself. So he's literally stuck in sparring partner mentality, which is sad because, you know, he was a good fighter, but he's just so lazy. Doesn't throw shots. He makes anyone he fights look pretty good. And if he turns up with a few days' notice, then, you know, he's just not sharp enough, to be honest, to go the distance. So he took many big shots. And, yeah, like I say, it was a bit uncomfortable to watch. I wanted it to get stopped even earlier, to be honest. He should just pack it in now, Johnson. That's his 16th loss there. 51 fights, 34 wins, 1 draw, and like I say, 16 losses. Martin Bakole 14-1. Also on the bill, John Doherty went the distance against Lewis Van Pooch. So Doherty now 7-0. It was a points win over 6 there. Kieran Conway was on the undercard again. He took on Comrade Stempowski, 9-1. Conway 12-1 with 1 draw. Obviously, in Conway's last fight, he drew with Ted Cheeseman. A win for him on points over 8 rounds. Savannah Marshall moved to 8-0. A TKO in the 3rd round against Ashley Curry, who had a losing record, 8-12 with 4 draws. Another overmatch fight there for Savannah Marshall. Lawrence Oswecki was also on the bill. He took on Ricky Summers. Ricky Summers 16-2 with 1 draw. Oswecki 9-0 with 1 draw, because they both got a draw here against each other. A split draw over 10 rounds. One judge had it almost a complete shutout anyway for Oswecki. He had it to Oswecki by 8 points. The other judge had it to Summers by 1. That was Michael Alexander. I couldn't believe that. And then Howard Foster had it 95-95. So a draw. A lot of people felt like Oswecki should have got the decision there. So that's sad to see that, really, because I also, even though I wasn't scoring it, I felt like he more than did enough. So hopefully a rematch happens there, because we don't like injustice. Also on the bill, Ted Cheeseman against Scott Fitzgerald. Brilliant fight. What did I think of the fight itself? I mean, Cheeseman came out and he did something I hadn't seen him do for a long time. He actually boxed. He didn't use his face for his defence. You know, his head movement was good as well. I couldn't believe what I was saying, but Cheeseman was elusive. You know, not as elusive as Ayaz Summer, of course, but it wasn't what I expected from Ted Cheeseman. I felt like he racked up quite a few of the early rounds. Again, perhaps I was swayed by the Sky commentary. I'm not afraid to admit that. I was listening to it with the volume on, and or watching it with the volume on, and I felt like he racked up quite a few of those early rounds. I mean, I wasn't scoring it strictly. Cheeseman was, in my opinion, in control early on, and Fitzgerald came on strong in the later rounds, in my opinion, which I felt quite surprising, because Fitzgerald, again, I said it, he gassed out a tiny bit against Fowler, and Cheeseman so fit. I thought if anyone was going to have any success late on, it'd be Cheeseman. I said that on last week's show, but it was the complete opposite of what I said. So, yeah, quite a shocker there. But in the end, Ted Cheeseman lost a unanimous decision to Scott Fitzgerald. I think the scorecards were a little bit wider than what they should have been. 2 judges had it to Fitzgerald by 3. The other judge had it by 2. That, of course, was for Cheeseman's British welterweight title. So he's now been... his super welterweight title. He's now been relieved of that belt. So Scott Fitzgerald, the new British champion. And credit to him. Again, he's one of those guys. He's not going to be fighter of the year. He's not going to be British fighter of the year because we've got people like Josh Warrington and others. But he deserves an honourable mention now for taking on Anthony Fowler and beating him. And, of course, taking on Ted Cheeseman and beating him in what was seemingly 50-50 fights, if not 60-40 fights to his opponent. So I like what he's doing there, Scott Fitzgerald. You can't really help but like him, in my opinion. The main event, though, Louis Ritson now 20-1, a unanimous decision over 12 rounds against Robbie Davies Jr., who is now 19-2. Good win, to be honest, from Ritson. Again, the first round was a brilliant round. I felt like Davies started nicely. He was outlanding Ritson, even though at the end of the round, I thought to myself, to be honest, Ritson probably did land 4 of the 5 best punches landed in the round. As the round went on, Ritson did have a great little spell where he was teeing off on Davies, but then again Davies responded and had good success of his own. It was a brilliant last minute in the first round. It was a super tight round. I felt like Ritson might have just done enough though. The second round, Davies Jr. for me won that round. He came out and once again tried to push Ritson back. Ritson looked stronger than I thought he would have looked against Davies, but Davies had more success and I felt like he won that round. I did notice that Robbie Davies Jr.'s head movement was letting him down a bit. He seemed to not really move his head. The third round, once again, I did give it to Davies. Again, it was a nip and tuck close round. It could have gone either way. It was really, becoming quite a tough thing to do to score the fight. Both men were taking turns to punish the other guy. But again, I had it 2-1 to Davies after 3. The fourth round, I had it to Ritson. I felt like Davies started well. Ritson ended well. He did the better work for me. Fifth round, again, for me, a Ritson round, but another real tight round. The sixth round, another tight round. Controversially, I gave it to Davies Jr., but again, it could have been a Ritson round. Seventh round, brilliant round for Ritson. One thing that impressed me the most about him was his excellent jab. I mean, he had a real ramrod, spiteful jab, and he caught Davies with a few nice jabs, again and again in that round. So for me, 4-3 to Ritson after 7. I did say on last week's show that Davies' chin would be tested, and it was, and he showed a good chin, as did Ritson. The 8th round, Ritson round for me again. But again, it was a close round. The 9th round, for me, Davies Jr. won that round. Davies Jr. had Ritson pinned on the ropes. For the first time in the fight, Ritson appeared perhaps a little bit fatigued as well. So I had it 5-4. And then in the 10th round, it was a close round. It could have gone either way. I think I might have just edged it to Davies Jr. So I had it 5-5. And then, of course, going into the final 2 rounds where it was all up for grabs. Ritson, for me, won the 11th round. And then, of course, the 12th round. What an excellent round. Certainly a contender for round of the year. It was just unbelievable. Both men were letting their hands go in big combinations. Both men looked in danger. Ritson might have just edged it. So for me, 7-5 was my final card. I was really impressed with Ritson's gas tank. He's known to be a quick starter who burns out as the fight goes on, but no way. He proved the doubters wrong. One judge had it 5 points to Ritson. That's quite wide because I had it by 2. You know what I mean? The other judges had it by 4. I think twice. So, a little bit wide, I suppose, on the cards. But the right man won for me anyway. And credit to Ritson, because I did not see that coming. And talking of the Prediction League, let's revisit that. I don't think we did too well, to be honest. Let me go back over that. The listeners went with Ritson by knockout. So did you, Ayaz. I went with Davies on points. We didn't gain anything there. I went with Gvozdyk on points. So did you, Ayaz. But the listeners went with Beterbiev by KO. So they gained a point. And then myself and you, Ayaz, we both went with Fitzgerald to win on points. But the listeners went with Fitzgerald for the knockout. So we both gained a point. So 1 point gained a piece, pretty much. Me, you, and the listeners' eyes all gain a point. So the scores pretty much stay the same in terms of the gap between my leading number one spot, and you guys, which I think share second place, same points. But that is it, though, for the review part of the show. Just before we wrap up part one, the final thing to do is to welcome our very first guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the reigning WBA Super-Featherweight World Champion. It is, of course, Mr. Andrew Cancio. Andrew, welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, how's it going?
Very well.
Thank you for having me on.
It's a pleasure to have you on, Andrew. It really is. Obviously, it's the first time you've been on this show. Our listeners probably don't know too much about you. I just think it's important to give them a little insight. You know, you turned pro March 2006. By the end of 2006, you were 5-0 with 2 draws. Not the perfect start. Were those draws controversial ones looking back now, Andrew? I know one was, of course, on your debut, and you've gone on to achieve what you've achieved.
Yes, they were. They definitely were controversial. The one draw that I had, I think in the very first one, I beat the crap out of the guy. I dropped him. It was a 4-round fight, and I don't understand how they gave me a draw. But it is what it is, and we kept pursuing our career, and all the hard work and dedication finally paid off. It wasn't a perfect start, nor do I have a perfect record, but I feel a couple of losses are controversial. The one thing that is working for us so well now is we're finishing these fights off instead of letting them go to the scorecard, and just putting our craft together finally. You know, I feel like this is my time, and I never felt this good before, and the way I lose weight now, it's a lot healthier and everything. So our training regimen is definitely working out to our favor.
And like I say, you've made it right to the top of the tree, which is amazing. You know, you haven't had it easy. You haven't been the luckiest fighter, that's for sure. You mentioned a couple of losses, obviously 4 in total, but to be honest, 3 of them were close fights. I mean, 2 majority decision losses, 1 unanimous, but it was still a close fight. The only loss, obviously, that was a clear loss was the Joseph Diaz Jr. loss, but that fight actually almost became a turning point in your career, Andrew, because what you've done since that loss, you took a bit of time out, what you've done since that loss is nothing short of excellent. How do you assess that Diaz Jr. fight looking back now, and obviously the improvements you've made since then?
Oh, yeah. You know, it's the fight that I want to get back. I want to avenge my loss to him. I feel like I'm a way better fighter than I was when I fought him back in the day. And I think this time I'll knock him out. I'm actually sure that I'll knock him out. I want that fight bad. It's a loss that definitely has motivated me to keep training hard and to get myself back up there. And I hope to face him in 2020. Hopefully everything works out well with this fight coming up November 23rd against Rene Alvarado, my mandatory. But that fight definitely was a turning point in my career. I thought I was retired. I took some time away from the sport, the gym, you name it. I didn't do anything for about almost 2 years. So, and then ever since then, I've just been on a rampage since then, and I want to continue, you know, tearing up the division. And I JoJo knows I want to fight him. I want that rematch, and I would love to give him a title shot, you know, for me to get that rematch.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. We had Jojo Diaz on last week's podcast. He actually talked about he definitely wants to face you in 2020, so it's good to hear you both talking about that. I know you mentioned there about the time that you took off. In what period of your career, Andrew, did you actually take off and retire for a while? Because I heard that you went back to a normal job. What stage of your career did that happen?
Well, when I for sure was retired was after the Jojo Diaz fight.
Oh, wow.
I didn't go to the gym. I didn't even watch boxing. I was fed up with it. I was tired of everything. So I was already working a full-time job, but I just ended up saying I'm done. I'm retired. I told everybody I was retired, and some things changed in my life where the itch came back, and my kids wanted to see me fight again, and then I just felt like I had a lot more to prove than that Jojo Diaz fight. and I had to come back. I had to show the people that wasn't me. That wasn't the. I know that I can do a way better job than that, and I proved it. Getting my butt kicked in front of thousands of people and fans watching around the world. Was pretty embarrassing. So, like I said, I've worked on my craft and worked on getting back up to the top. That way, I can go and avenge my loss, and that's what I plan on doing, and hopefully in 2020.
And you mentioned there your son, your daughter, they convinced you to make a return to the ring. You did exactly that. Like I say, you've now gone on to be a world champion. Is that one of the best decisions you've ever made in your life, Andrew?
Oh, yeah, of course. Had I not dedicated myself again and worked my way back up, I wouldn't be sitting where I'm at right now. I would never have accomplished my lifelong dream and goal. So I definitely, I'm so glad that I did take that decision and came back at full force.
And that Diaz fight, it was over 3 years ago now. You were out the ring, like you said, almost 2 years. I think it was 19 months following the fight. You decided to move up to Super-Featherweight. Your results, like I say, have been brilliant. I'm guessing you probably feel a lot stronger at 130. You've had 4 fights, 4 wins, 3 by KO. And, of course, you've gained a nice, shiny new belt. You feel a lot better at 130?
Oh, yes. 126 was just a little too hard. Well, actually, it was real hard for me to get there. I'm a big boy, and it was just, I'm glad that whenever we took the fight against the undefeated Russian, I forgot what's his name, I believe Adar.
Yeah.
Adar, we fought that WBA Continental belt at 130, and that's what got me ranked. And my coach didn't like it. He wanted me to go back to 126, but I told him all my best fights have been at 130. I remember I fought Jerry Belmontes at 130 when he was 18-1, and I beat him unanimously. And I believe I fought Rene Alvarado at 128 or 130 when we first fought. So I feel really good at 130. I'm able to move around just fine. I don't deplete myself. I'm able to just concentrate on the fight, and I get down there fairly easy just with following my strict diet and doing all the right things. But yeah, I definitely feel way better at 130 than 126.
And I want to go back to February 9th of this year, your world title challenge against the undefeated Alberto Machado. You were the underdog going into the fight. It was filled with drama. You were down in the first round yourself. You got back up at the count of 9, but you battled back and you ended up dropping Machado 3 times in that 4th round, all from body shots. Talk me through the fight itself, because it was a crazy one. And of course, what's that feeling like becoming world champion, finally achieving that dream?
Well, the first round, I had a lot of jitters in the back of the dressing room. I was really nervous, really kind of scared. I didn't know what to expect. I was 36 minutes away from accomplishing my dream and becoming a world champion. So I had a lot of emotions, a lot of emotions going through me. I couldn't stop shaking in the dressing room. Get out to the fight, still the same thing. After the first bell rings, I figured they would go away like they normally do. And, it was a pretty close round. Well, I would say I was doing good, and then kind of fighting timid. And he caught me with the right hook, followed up by a left uppercut. And before I knew it, I was down on the ground. And I was like, oh, shoot. This wasn't supposed to happen. And I get back up from the canvas, and I just, I've been down before, been down by Rocky Juarez. He put me down, and, I kept my composure and continued on fighting. But this time I was pressuring him instead of fighting timid. I mean, that knockdown definitely woke me up, and it snapped all the jitters out, because now I was behind on the scorecard. And I didn't want him to think that I was finished. So I started slowly putting my punches together by the time the first round ended. Get back to the corner, everything's good, and we go out there, and we started landing our combinations, putting pressure on them, and I believe after the third round, my coach comes back and says, "All right," he goes, "You're focusing on the head too much." He goes, "Which is beautiful." He goes, "You're landing your shots." He goes, "Let's work on the body this round. Go out in the fourth round, land a straight right on the button on the stomach, and he goes down. And then after that, I continue just going after the body. I didn't let up, and then before I knew it, the referee called it after the third knockdown, and I couldn't believe it. I was jumping for joy, of course, and I couldn't believe that we weren't going to scorecards. Like, right then and then, I knew that I was a world champion. And, a lot of emotions ran through me. I was in tears. I was happy. Just everything that night came true, and then it felt even better doing it in my own backyard at Fantasy Springs in front of my friends, my family. They were all there. It was a sold-out arena, and it was the best feeling in the world, you can say. And I'll never forget that night.
No, I'm sure you won't. February 9th, 2019. I mean, like you say, in front of your family and friends, being the underdog, becoming a world champion, going that hard road which you've gone up to get there. Of course, you had the rematch in June. Again, you stopped him with a body shot, this time in the third round. You really did close that chapter there, the whole saga with Machado with another bang. And then, of course, talking of rematches, the upcoming world title defense for you against Rene Alvarado, a man that you mentioned. You stopped him in 8 rounds back in December 2015. Rene is another guy who, has worked his way up. He's seemingly improved since that fight. But do you see this fight going pretty much the same way as the last one, knowing this guy so well?
I do. I feel like I've gotten a lot better than when I faced him back in 2015. I feel like I'm going to be able to box and slip his punches more. And I'm going to go to the body. I love going to the body. I know he's a come forward type guy, and he's going to bring it. But I just feel like I'm mentally strong, physically strong. I know I see things a lot differently in the ring now. It's like it's slowing down for me, where I can see these openings a lot clearer than before. And like I said, I got a good team behind me, and I feel like I'm gonna retain my title once again. Like, I've been putting in the work in the gym, and like I said, I know he's gonna come with everything, and I'm giving everything in the gym as well. That way, we're well prepared for 12 hard rounds.
And I'm sure that you probably know this more than a lot of people, but obviously you can't overlook any opponent at the very top level. But because you know Alvarado so well, has it been difficult not overlooking him? Because obviously there's big fights like Diaz out there that you want. Has it been a difficult task trying to just stay focused on one guy that you've boxed before?
No, it's not hard at all. Like you said, I want the bigger fight, so in order for me to do that, I have to stay focused. I have to stay focused to make sure I handle the task in front of me first and foremost, and then after that, then we can secure our future having bigger fights. So for me, staying focused is easy. I got my kids. I got goals in mind. I want to buy a house, and in order for me to do these things, I got to continue winning and getting bigger paydays for me to do that. So it hasn't been hard for me to focus. I want to go out there and showcase why I am the 130-pound world champion.
And again, Joseph Diaz last week told me that he'll be fighting Tevin Farmer at some point in January. He basically said he's going to fight him then. Of course, he plans to win. And then after that, he'd love to box you. He'd love to pick up, another title before the end of 2020. But one thing at a time, Diaz against Tevin Farmer, I'm not quite sure who'd be the favourite. I'm guessing it'd probably be Farmer. If that fight does end up happening, who do you believe wins that one, Farmer and Diaz?
I believe Farmer takes that fight. If JoJo wins, that'd be great. That way we can have a unification rematch for a lot of money. But I personally see Tevin Farmer making a miss and just outboxing him. And if he does, like I said, I don't care who it is. I tell other reporters that I don't care who it is. It could be Burchell. Jamal Herring, Lamont Roach, the winner of those two, Tevin Farmer, Jojo Diaz. It doesn't matter. I want to fight the best out there. I want the big paydays, and that's what I'm gonna do in 2020. Hopefully, like I said, after I get past going past November 23rd, then I don't care who it is. But in my opinion, I see Tevin Farmer outboxing Jojo Diaz.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would probably agree with you, to be honest. And this question I'm asking everybody at the minute, Andrew: Joshua versus Ruiz, who wins the rematch in December in Saudi Arabia, in your opinion, my friend?
That one, I would have to say, is a toss-up. Andy Ruiz, he got caught, he got dropped, and it can happen again. And maybe Joshua keeps his composure, keeps his chin down, doesn't get caught, doesn't let Andy Ruiz get inside and throw the combinations that he allowed him to throw. So, but Andy Ruiz has his number. He stopped him. He hurt him. So I feel like that one's a 50-50 toss-up. I think it's going to be a great rematch, and, best of luck to both those fighters. But I see that fight being 50-50.
Yeah, we're all going to be watching it for sure. And finally, Andrew, my last real question for you. I'm going to put you on the spot a tiny bit here. I like to ask this question to everyone that we speak to from overseas. Who would you say is your favourite fighter from the UK? It can be a guy that's retired 100 years ago. It can be a guy that's still boxing today. Who comes to mind when I ask you that question, if you know your UK boxing?
Ricky Hatton was from UK, right?
Yes, sir.
I loved watching him fight. He would be my favorite fighter. I loved watching all his fights. I was rooting for him against Floyd Mayweather. I feel like he was a genuinely nice, humble person. He likes drinking beer just like I do. I was a huge fan of Ricky Hatton. I loved how he put on weight after the fights, and they called him Ricky Fatten. He loved the burgers. I followed his career, and I definitely do love his come forward style, giving angles. I was a huge fan of Ricky Hatton.
Yeah, that's a very popular answer. It's funny to hear you say that. He's loved not just in the UK, but also in all parts of the world. And just finally, Andrew, have you got any closing words just to our listeners before I let you go? Obviously, you've got a lot of guys over here in the UK that are going to hear this interview. What's your message to your potentially new supporters from this side of the pond?
Check me and Rene Alvarado out while I defend my title on November 23rd, live on DAZN. And hopefully you guys enjoyed the show and become fans of me and follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Andrew Cancio, and then El Chango 130 on the Instagram. And just tune in, and if you guys like what you see, become a fan of mine. I would love that. I'd love to have UK fans out there. That'd be awesome.
Excellent. Very well said, my friend. Listen, Andrew, it has been a real pleasure interviewing you this week. Best of luck with your fight on November 23rd at the Fantasy Springs Casino, and I hope that we can catch up sometime after your win.
For sure. Thank you for having me on. Appreciate it.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. This part, of course, the news part of the show. Ayaz, what you got?
Cecilia Brækhus has signed a multi-fight promotional deal with Eddie Hearn and Matchroom Boxing. The agreement will see the undisputed welterweight world champion fight on Sky Sports in the UK and DAZN in the US. Tom Loeffler, however, remains as an advisor.
Yeah, I mean, Cecilia Brækhus, pretty much recognised by everyone at the minute, aside from some crazy people, as the best fighter, the pound-for-pound #1 in the female side of the sport. So it's a big signing for Eddie Hearn. A lot of people bash Eddie Hearn for this and that, each to their own, but you've got to say, he's a powerful man in boxing, and he is doing a hell of a lot for women's boxing. He's obviously had Clarissa Shields on his cards. He's had Katie Taylor on multiple big shows, too many actually. She gets herself on every show. I mean, I'm sure she'd be on the Joshua undercard if it wasn't going to be a problem in Saudi. Obviously, Natasha Jonas as well. I got a feeling, he's also got Terry Harper as well, who I think's fighting perhaps this week or the week after. He's doing a lot for women's boxing, and I suppose he doesn't really need to. He's got a lot of male fighters, but credit to Eddie Hearn, because this is brilliant for women's boxing. He's doing more than any other leading promoter in the world for women's boxing. So got to take your hat off to him, especially if you're a fan of women's boxing. So yeah, hopefully we see those big fights with Brackhouse and a few others.
Kubrat Pulev will first ride up Booker in a heavyweight clash on the undercard of Herring v Rhodes Jr. on November the 9th.
Yeah, you know what? Kubrat Pulev, I mean, I really, really rate him, you know? He's obviously still got that one loss which came to Vladimir Klitschko. I put him right up there. I've always said it for years and years. Him and Povetkin, I would have thought would have been a brilliant fight. I wanted to see that years and years ago. Now, since that Vladimir Klitschko fight, I just feel like his opponents have been pretty bad. And I mean, I'm going to go back and have a look. After that fight, he took on George Arias, okay? You know, he went the distance with him. Then he took on Maurice Harris. Then he took on Chisora. He beat Chisora easy, even though it was a split decision, which was a complete joke. I remember betting on that. He toyed with Chisora. Then he took on Sam Peter. For a reason that I don't understand at all. Then he took on Kevin Kingpin Johnson, who we spoke about in part 1. Then he took on Hughie Fury. Good win, fair enough, but Hughie Fury, you know, other than that fight against Joseph Parker, still a little bit untested. And, you know, he cut Hughie Fury early on and he controlled everything. It wasn't a hard fight for him. Then he took on Bogdan Dinu and he stopped him. Then obviously that controversy happened after the fight with that woman and all that. Forget about that. Don't want to go into it. But it just seems like he's treading water and he's getting older, you know. Kubrat Pulev's 38 years of age now. I don't understand what he's waiting for. I don't understand what's going on. It's like he's now with Top Rank, so I'm expecting them to deliver something big for him, but I don't really get what's going on because, you know, his last fight, as I said, against Dinu, who I think was coming off a loss. I think Dinu was coming straight off a loss to Jarrell Miller, and he knocked him out with ease, and now he's fighting this guy here, and I just can't understand the logic behind it, but what's he doing? You know, why isn't he fighting a Joseph Parker? Why isn't he fighting a Dillian White? Why isn't he fighting many guys like a Dubois? There's so many much more interesting fights than this. So I don't know what he's doing. He's just treading water, and he has been since that Klitschko fight in 2014. I'm almost ready to throw the towel in on Pulev. What is he doing?
Yep, Luis Neri will face Emmanuel Rodriguez in a bantamweight clash on the Wilder vs Ortiz undercard.
Oh, this is a brilliant fight. I heard it got made the other day, and I think I tweeted about it. I really, really like that fight. Obviously, Luis Neri's been involved in a couple of dodgy things, but as for his actual boxing itself, he's a brilliant fighter. 30-0, 24 knockouts. Even though Emmanuel Rodriguez got smashed by Inoue and he looked terrible, let's not write him off. You know, he showed before that fight he's a real good fighter and he's a mover as well, which I think brings an interesting dynamic to this fight. I'd probably favour Neri because I think he's a bit special, Luis Neri, but there needs to be drug testing for it, and I think it's a brilliant fight. I mean, it's a fight that I feel like both of them need at the minute, because Luis Neri, you know, since beating Yamanaka, again, he's gone on a little bit of a weird run, you know. Jason Canoy, Renson Robles, Mukjo Arroyo, fair enough. He beat Payano, even though I'm a bit kind of, I don't know, I'm not sure on Payano. I don't think he's that great anymore. I think he's pretty quickly kind of washed up a bit. And now he takes on Rodriguez, who, like I say, is a brilliant fighter. So that's a very interesting fight, and that's one I'm going to be tuning into. That's a brilliant fight. Please don't, if you're listening to me now, please don't overlook that fight. That's a cracking fight for the calendar.
And finally, Anthony Crawler will face Frank Urega in a lightweight clash on November the 2nd at Manchester Arena.
Oh boy. I'm going to try not to go in too hard on this. Anthony Crawler, obviously we know it's his farewell fight. He takes on Frank Urquigia, or whatever his name is. It's hard. It's hard to not go in on this, because the guy, I mean, I think he's beaten about 5 or 6 people with winning records. He's got a record of 13-1 with 1 draw. In his last fight, he got a draw against Ivan Thomas, who was 9-0. Ivan Thomas just got knocked out by Devis Boshiero. Please, if you don't know who that is, BoxRec Devis Boshiero. Luigi's not going to like it, but I've said it before. Boshiero is one of the paddedest records I've ever seen in my life. Yeah, so he drew with a guy that got sparked by Boshiero. His other loss was to Edis Tatley, who, of course, we saw box Teofimo Lopez and get stopped by him. Obviously, no shame in that. But Edis Tatley's not a world beater. And Anthony Crolla takes on this guy here. Again, I can't even really say his last name. Kiaga or whatever. I just don't see the point in it. I was having a little bit of a debate on Twitter. Someone said, it's his farewell fight, just be happy with it, or don't watch it. I'm going to watch it because I watch everything, but I think it speaks for itself when Nigel Benn's coming back after 23 years out of the ring and he's facing someone who's a much, much, much bigger threat than this guy here from Spain. Not that I'm condemning what Nigel Benn's doing, but I just think it puts things into perspective. There's so many other guys that Crolla could have fought. Why not Tommy Coyle? Why not go into a fight like that? I think he would have beaten Coyle. Or just anyone, a British name. It can be a British name that's under that level. Let's have a look, actually, who he could fight in Britain. I'm going to look at the British people on BoxRec. So, obviously, it's not going to be Lee Selby or Luke Campbell. It's not going to be Ricky Burns. He fought him already. Why didn't he fight maybe Stephen Smith? Why didn't he fight maybe Scott Cardle? Liam Walsh? Any of these guys, Any of these guys. Even like Lucas Belingal, who I think is a decent fighter. He's 12-0 though. Why not someone we actually know, Like, why not? And the guy could have put up a good effort and we could have seen him progress onto something. Like, why is he fighting this guy? I don't know. But don't get me wrong, I think Crolla's a complete legend. There needs to be a film made about him one day. His story is just unbelievable. I love Crolla to pieces, I really do. But it's a bit of a pointless fight. It's going to be a bit of a sparring session, in my opinion. Hopefully I'm not being too negative once again. Is that it for the news, Ayaz?
Yes, that's it for the news.
Okay, thank you very much, Ayaz. Right, moving on pretty quickly now to the preview part of the show. This one takes place tomorrow, Friday the 25th of October at the Allianz Cloud in Milan. We get to see over here Francesco Patera, 22-3. He defends his EBU European lightweight title against Domenico Valentino. Actually, this guy is undefeated. He's 8-0. Well, let me just have a quick little look at him because this could perhaps be a decent fighter. Let's have a little look. Domenico Valentino from Italy, 35 years of age. He was actually a pretty good amateur. Yeah, pretty good amateur. Oh, that could be interesting. Lost to Frankie Gavin in the amateurs in 2005, I believe. Yeah, he was a 2008 Olympian. Boy, oh boy, he's turned over pretty late. Yeah. Oh, he boxed Josh Taylor as well. Oh, and he boxed Lomachenko. And he boxed Jose Pedraza. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Oh, he beat Josh Taylor in the amateurs. Right, that's enough. Yeah, that'd be interesting. Domenico Valentino. Apologies if people know who that is, and probably Luigi's probably thinking, hey, how do you not know who he is? I just didn't know who that guy was there. But credit to him. Right, that's it for that card there. Moving out now to Thailand, obviously the legend, the living legend that is Chayaphon Moonsri, known as a few other aliases. Don't need to go into them. This man is known simply as the legend. He defends his WBC world minimum weight title against Simpiwi Konko, 19-5. Moonsri looking to move to 54-0. The real Mayweather is in Thailand this Friday. Moving out now to Kazakhstan at the Balawan Shalok Sports Palace. A brilliant fight over here, actually. Well, I say brilliant, that's overselling it a bit. But Kana Islam, a guy who, again, is a real good fighter to a certain level. I want to see him stepped up. He's still undefeated, 26-0. He puts his WBO International Middleweight title on the line against Walter Kautondokwa. You might remember him. He stepped in when Billy Joe Saunders failed the drugs test or whatever when he was supposed to take on Andrade, and Kautondokwa jumped in there. I think Andrade had him down about 4 times or something like that, but Kautondokwa, for how not so good he was a real puncher. I think he had about 17 knockouts from 18 wins when he went in there against Andrade. That's his one loss, so no shame in that. That could be pretty interesting there in Kazakhstan. Moving out now though to the O2 Arena, Greenwich, London, United Kingdom. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be there. I wish I was, but I got denied a press pass, so I won't be there. I'll be watching from my sofa. I'll be paying my £20 pay-per-view. It certainly, in my opinion, deserves at least that. On the undercard, Shannon Courtenay 3-0. Also, Austin Williams comes over from the States. He's 3-0 as well. Abbas Barao 7-0. He fights for the WBC International Super Welterweight title against John O'Donnell, 33-2. Conor Benn was supposed to take on Laszlo Toth, which was going to be a good fight in my opinion. Conor Benn 15-0. It is for his WBA Continental Welterweight title, but he now takes on a replacement. What's the guy's name? Stefan Jamoy, I think it is. Is it Steve? No, Steve Jamoy. I think they're two brothers, Steve and Stefan. One of them took on Scott Quigg a few years back. I think that might have been Stefan, but it's another step up. To be fair, it is another step up. It's, you know, they're moving in the right direction with Conor Benn. It could be a tough fight. You know, he's better than the likes of that French guy whose name I've completely forgot at the minute. Yves Ngarbu, 20-0, puts his EBU European Cruiserweight title on the line against Lawrence Okoli. Because there's so many brilliant fights, this one's really going under the radar for the first time. A lot of Okoli's fights have been big, high-profile fights against Chamberlain, against Askin, against Watkins. You know, they've been big fights against Camacho, and here he's right down on the undercard against Ngarbu, who's obviously the champion. And he's a good fighter, Ngarbu, so that'd be quite interesting. We'll get to see, you know, how good Okoli really is. It's a step up from British level, so it's going to be interesting there. Ricky Burns, 43-7 with one draw, takes on Lee Selby, 27-2. We've gone to the predictions on this. Ayaz, talk to me. Burns Selby, great fight.
Yes, it's definitely a brilliant fight. Ricky Burns versus Lee Selby. Yeah, I think both fights obviously are coming to the end of their career. So if I'm going to go with a win, I'm going to go with Lee Selby to win on points. And I think Ricky Burns is almost finished.
Yeah, popular choice, Ayaz. The listeners have gone with the same thing, and so am I, to be honest. Lee Selby's a friend of the show, but not just for that reason. I think Ricky Burns has been done for a long, long time. Selby needs to improve, though, on his last performance on that Degal Eubank undercard. He did not look good against Omar Douglas. He said it himself. I think he had a bad cut early on, and he boxed pretty badly, to be honest. Obviously, Andrew Selby's been a bit hit and miss as well lately, as sad as it is to say. One of my favourite fighters. But yeah, big for Selby on points. The listeners, 66%. Burns on points, 29%. Selby by knockout, 0%. And Burns by knockout, 0%. Obviously, both men never been stopped. Ricky Burns is such a tough guy. I mean, I just can't see him getting stopped in his career. I don't think it's going to happen. I think he probably loses and retires anyway. So perhaps it's a farewell for him. But yeah, I agree, Ayaz. I'm going to go Selby points. If he's at his best, he should win. But you can't really count out Ricky Burns. You know, it is one of those weird kind of fights because they are nearing the end of their careers. You'd like to think Selby's got more in the tank. But, yeah, it's a tough one. Because, again, Selby's only had that one fight at is this at 135? I think it's at 135, or is it 135 this one. So, again, he's only had the one fight at 135, whereas Burns has been there for a long time. So, you know, the weight, I suppose, favours Burns because he's really grown into it. But then again, as Lee Selby correctly told me, he's much taller than Ricky Burns, even though BoxRec suggests otherwise. It can't be right all the time. So all of us there, clean sweep, unanimous, I should say. Lee Selby on points. Moving up the card once again, Derek Chisora, 31-9 against David Price, 25-6. Ayaz, 12 rounds. Will it go 12 rounds though?
I don't think this is going to go 12 rounds. Obviously, we've seen Derek Chisora versus David Price. This is going to be a very good fight. So obviously, it's basically like whoever wins this fight will go on for luck to go up for like a world title, whereas the loser there's nowhere to go. But if I'm going to go with a win, I'm going to go with Derek Chisora to win by knockout.
Again, a very popular choice. We're all agreeing once again, unanimous. Chisora by knockout, 79%, 21% Price by knockout. Not even one person voted for Price or Chisora to win on points, 0%. Yeah, I've got to go with Chisora by knockout. I mean, David Price looked good against Dave Allen. I've said it before. Chisora's a whole another few leagues above Dave Allen. Chisora's a tough guy. He's got a tough chin. I think he's got a couple cracks in it nowadays. I think Dillian Whyte, to knock him out the way he did was quite a statement. But I just think he's all wrong for David Price. He's going to overwhelm him, and even though David Price has looked all right in his last couple of fights, Cash Ali and Dave Allen, I just don't think those guys are a big drop down from Derek Chisora, and Derek Chisora should be near the end of his career. David Price should be near the end of his career. I'd like to see the loser retire. It seems like a bit of a fashion this weekend with a few of the fights. But yeah, you've got to go Chisora knockout. I mean, I don't think, no way in the world is it going to go the distance. Again, I don't think Price has got enough in the tank to just keep the jab out and keep him at bay for 12 rounds. He's not Dave Allen. He's a bit more creative. He knows how to slip a shot coming forward as well, Chisora. And it would have been a good fight maybe 6 years ago or 7 years ago, but not now. So I think Chisora's got a bit too much left in the tank in terms of freshness, unbelievably. But he's been in many tough fights, Chisora. Every fight he has is pretty much a tough fight, and he goes to the trenches a lot more than David Price. David Price seems to get a little taste of it, and it ends badly quite quickly after. So for me, it's a Chisora knockout, probably in bad fashion, actually. All agreeing there once again. Moving up the card once again to the main event, the most interesting one for me, and this is a fight that I have been so looking forward to. It, of course, is for the WBA Super, the IBF, and the Ring Magazine Super-Lightweight World titles. Regis Prograis 24-0 against Josh Taylor 15-0 over 12 rounds. Both men incredible fighters. In my opinion, both men are number one and number two. There's a big argument. I think Prograis number one. I think you disagree. I think you think Josh Taylor's perhaps number one at 140, but there will be no disagreeing come Sunday morning. We'll know who the very best man is, and I don't think Jose Ramirez comes close enough to get in the top two. This is a super fight. Like I say, two undefeated world champions putting it on the line, a little bit like Gvozdyk and Beterbiev last weekend, both undefeated champions in a unification. It's a lucky time to be a boxing fan, because we're seeing two of those fights in a 7 day period. But yeah, for me, Regis Prograis, I think, has just got too much in the locker, really, for Josh Taylor. I think Josh Taylor's an amazing fighter. I think he's a terrific fighter. He's massive for the weight. He spars bigger guys. I've heard he's had his way with super middleweights in sparring and stuff like that. That's just unbelievable. Obviously he's a southpaw, just like Prograis. I think at times it probably will be a chess match. I think there's going to be a few rounds where perhaps not loads and loads of action is going to happen. I think the first couple rounds are probably going to be feel-out rounds. But I've just got this feeling that Prograis will get to him late and probably stop Josh Taylor late. I think that's what will happen. But I could be wrong. It is such a 50-50 fight, in my opinion. Either man could win. I don't think Prograis is going to get knocked out. I think he's just tough. I mean, I saw him. He invited me down kindly to the Peacock Gym last week. I think it was last week. Yeah, last week I went and seen him train. Just me, he's a good friend of mine now, Prograis, and he's just absolutely solid. There's not an ounce of fat on his body, and I saw a bit of his pad work, and I tell you what, he looks on fire. And honestly, he is such a brilliant fighter. I've been a big fan of him from pretty much the first time I ever saw him. He knocks people down for fun. He's got it all going for him, and I just think he's going to do it. I think he's been a bit more impressive in his fights leading up to this than Taylor has in his respective fights. I just think both men have got so much skills. I just think Prograis just got a little bit more. I think he hits harder. I think he's probably a bit quicker, and he's strong as hell. He really is. Whereas Taylor's gonna try and have to use his reach, I suppose, but I just don't think he's gonna be able to keep the little pit bull, the Rougarou, off of him. And I think the knockout comes late on, but. I mean, I was torn between points or a knockout, but I think I'm just going to go with a knockout in the late rounds. Very, very big call from me, I know. Ayaz, how do you see it?
I think it's a very, very difficult fight, right? Obviously, I think it's going to be a very, very tough fight. I think it's going to be a skill or masterclass fight between Josh Taylor and Regis Prograis. But obviously, I'm going to go I'm gonna back the UK man, so I'm gonna go with Josh Taylor to win on points because this isn't home soil. I'm going with Josh Taylor to win on points.
Okay, Josh Taylor on points. The listeners agree with you, Ayaz. So you and the listeners, great minds think alike. But yeah, just my last word on that fight. I think that it's just such a cracking fight. I hope that it gets the pay-per-view buyers it deserves. Hope everyone tunes in and enjoys it. It's going to be absolutely magnificent. I was going to say something else, but I can't remember what it was now. I just cannot wait for that fight. There's not many fights where I'm just looking forward to it like a kid at Christmas, and that fight does it for me. Moving out now to the Reno Sparks Convention Center in Nevada, USA. 2 last bills to go over. Let's start with the undercard. Michaela Mayer, 11-0. She fights for the NABF female super featherweight title against Alejandra Zamora, 7-3. Also on that card, Andy Ventez, 22-1 with 1 draw, takes on Mark Bernaldez, 19-2. That's a 10-rounder there. Also on the bill, Joshua Greer Jr., 21-1 with 1 draw. He's in a 10-rounder against Antonio Nieves. Friend of the show, Greer Jr. He likes to bring out the pillow with a Z's on it. Nieves, I said, 19-2 with 2 draws. That one's for the WBO, NABO Bantamweight title and the WBC Continental Americas Bantamweight title. All the best there to Greer Jr. Topping the bill, though, Shakur Stevenson, 12-0, gets his chance to fight for the world title belt. It's the vacant WBO World Featherweight title. He takes on Joet Gonzalez, 23-0. Again, I said it on, I think it was last week's show where Shakur Stevenson was on the show. He's fighting a guy here in Gonzalez who's not that well known to the UK fans, but he's actually a good fighter, Gonzalez. And if you listen to the interview, I even said it. I think Gonzalez has stopped all but one, or perhaps even all of the southpaws he's boxed as a pro. So Shakur Stevenson's a southpaw. He did say, I'm not like those guys. I know what I'm doing in there. They're not me. We chuckled about that. But no, it's a good fight. It's a really good fight. And he becomes possibly the youngest world champion in boxing right now. So no matter what you think of Shakur Stevenson, he does have that superstar. There's something about him. He's got that little pinch of superstardom in his mixture somewhere. He's something special about him. And if he wins, he becomes a big star there. It'll be his 13th fight. That'll be brilliant for him. And finishing up at the Santander Arena in Pennsylvania, USA. 2 fights to mention over here. Former world champion Robert Easter Jr. This one's really gone under the radar. Friend of the show, Easter Jr. 21-1 with 1 draw. Of course, that 1 loss came to Mikey Garcia. He takes on Adrian Granados over 10 rounds. Granados 20-7 with 2 draws. Never really in a bad fight. Should be interesting. Like I say, massively gone under the radar. That one's on Showtime, by the way. Topping that bill, though, Erickson Lubin, 21-1. He's in a 12-rounder against Nathaniel Gallimore, 21-3 with 1 draw. Again, Gallimore, decent fighter to a level, but Lubin, when he was undefeated, big things were expected of him. He was going to be a future world champion for sure, and if he is still on track for that after the setback against one of the Charlo brothers, I think it was Jamel, if he is going to get back on track, then he should beat Gallimore and beat him pretty well, in my opinion. I just quickly missed out there. Shakur Stevenson against Joet Gonzalez. As the final prediction. I know you probably don't know too much about Gonzalez. I'm going with Stevenson on points. The listeners are going Stevenson by knockout. I'm guessing you're also going with Stevenson. Knockout or points?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Shakur Stevenson by knockout.
Shakur Stevenson by knockout. You're agreeing with me. So finally, there's one thing that we agree on there. But that is about everything for the preview part of the show. We've brought you the first guest. We brought you the news. We brought you part 1 and part 2. Just before we wrap up the show entirely, let's now welcome our second and final guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the undefeated and reigning WBA Super-Lightweight world champion. It is, of course, Mr. Mario Barrios. Mario, welcome back on the show, my friend.
Appreciate it. Good to be back.
It's great to have you back, Mario. So we last spoke back in May. It was just after your brilliant win over Velasco. Fast forwarding, though, to your world title fight that took place almost a month ago to the day now. The Staples Center on the Spence vs. Porter undercard. You defeated Batyr Akhmedov for the vacant title. Just talk me through the fight from your perspective. And after this, I want to tell you what I thought of it as well.
I feel, I outboxed Akhmedov, in the early rounds, then I was able to put him down in the fourth, and then he came on in the sixth, and then in the later rounds, he was really, he was coming with an excellent game plan, that he had. I started suffering, some swelling and a cut due to headbutts, and me and him were in deep waters, and he still was applying the pressure. I thought I had lost the later rounds, but then, in the 12th, I was able to put him down. To me personally, it was a hell of a fight. I had myself winning due to the 12th round. And then, I was able to bring, that world title home, as I promised, my city a long time ago.
I agree 1,000,000%. That last round was the deciding factor for me, so I'm happy to hear you say that as well. The fight though, you just started excellently. You showed a great jab. I was really impressed with a jab. You were creative. You were attacking both the head and the body effectively. Perhaps most impressively, above everything though, was you just seemed so comfortable in there in the early rounds. Akhmedov is a tricky guy. He's got that amateur experience. He was trying to apply pressure, but you were just too smart for him in those early rounds. How did you remain so composed early on? And, obviously going into a fight like that without really that experience.
Yeah, we in the gym with Virgil Hunter, we always work on, being comfortable with being uncomfortable. And, there was a lot of times I never understood what Virgil, had meant by that. But, it's in fights, like that one, with Akhmedov, where it really sets in, when he's bringing all the pressure, he's bringing everything, but I'm still able, to remain calm and, and to pick my shots and do what I want to do, even though, he's applying the pressure and he's coming nonstop.
And again, in that fourth round, you hurt Akhmedov early on. You didn't, you hurt him early on, but you didn't get reckless. You applied smart pressure. You didn't get desperate. You ended up forcing him to touchdown. If I had to throw one criticism your way, it just has to be, if I'm being honest, I think sometimes you just trade a little bit too much. It's like you don't mind trading. I know that obviously you can punch, your record shows that, but sometimes you stay in the pocket a little bit too long. You end up giving away your size advantages, which obviously gives the smaller man a much better chance to land a big shot himself. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, no, that's very fair to say. My corner, my team, they know me as a fighter I am, and that's what they always try to tell me. They try to have me not sit in there, but that's the kind of fight I do love. Even though my corner doesn't, I get real caught up, in trading punches, and going blow for blow, and a lot of times, when I shouldn't. But it just, it's the fighter that I am.
Yeah, for sure. And again, if anyone that's listening to this interview hasn't watched the fight, you need to go and check it out. As the fight went on, Akhmedov's constant pressure did eventually cause Mario to appear a little bit fatigued. You started to neglect your jab. It started to turn into a bit of a war. You had to dig deep. You had to show heart that you hadn't previously shown in a ring under the lights. And if I'm being honest, Akhmedov was turning things around. I think you agree a little bit in those later rounds. There was actually a moment in between the rounds where I started to think, damn, like have you perhaps let go of your grip on the fight, because again you started so brilliantly and his pressure seemed to be getting to you. Then, like I say, in the final round you pulled out that shot and it was just a sensational shot. You dropped Akhmedov, he got back up, but that one shot for me won you the fight again. Am I being fair with what I'm saying? And have you had a chance to watch the fight back? Obviously you said you have. I'm not sure how in depth you've watched it. Did you score it at all?
Yeah, no, the way I had it during the fight was the way, I still had it scored, when I rewatched it, I had myself winning, the first 5 rounds and then including the knockdown. And then I had Akhmedov winning the others besides the 12th, like you said, he really, he brought the fight. And, I had to really, dig down deep and, make something, that only champions are able to do, make happen. And, I sent my hat to him, 100%. I told him, after the fight, I do believe, he will be world champion one day. But, I believe, on fight night, that wasn't his night.
And obviously no one knows you like you know yourself. We haven't obviously witnessed your sparring sessions. We haven't seen you take every punch that you've taken in your career. We haven't seen you have to dig deep like that before. Maybe you've done it in the gym many times, maybe you haven't. But I want to ask, did you find out something about yourself that night? Because you showed so much character. Did you ever have to show heart like that, before? Did you really find out that you've got something that you perhaps wasn't sure you had?
No, I mean, I've always known. I've always told, my fans, the media. I'm a warrior, which is why I gave myself, the name El Azteca. Because it represents me. It represents, the kind of fighter that I am. And that's one thing that was really good, taken away from this fight. I was able, to show everybody, because I've been saying it, I've been telling everybody, but that fight really, it showed everybody, it doesn't matter whether it's the first round or the 12th round. I'm going to stay in there in the fight regardless.
And it runs in the family because, again, your sister Selena in her loss showed courage that you almost don't get in women's boxing, if I'm being honest. She didn't take a backward step all night in that fight that she had. And I'm going to say it now, Mario, I doubt you'll have a tougher fight in your life than that fight. It might seem early, it might seem premature to say that. You might not retire undefeated. You might lose at some point before you hang the gloves up in many years' time. But I honestly doubt you'll need to dig deep like that again. I think you've at least proved to yourself and to everyone else that you really can dig and go into the trenches. Do you believe, though, that that's a big learning fight? I know a lot of people like to say you can learn more from a loss than you can in a win, but I feel like even though you won the fight, you're going to learn and improve so much on that. Yeah, no, exactly. Coming from this fight, we're able to look back, look at what, that the changes I should have made in there. And, I have no doubt, in my career, Akhmedov, is going to be, a name, that's always going to be brought up, by me and by anybody else, as, my hardest fight. I know, there's plenty of challenges ahead of me, but I don't know if any are going to present, as much trouble as they did, on fight night. Yeah, well said. And how does it feel now to be a world champion? Has it sunk in yet? You're only 24 years of age, one of the youngest world champions in boxing right now. Yeah, it really didn't set in. Until I finally made it back home. Then the amount of support and everything I received. It's been a remarkable here in San Antonio. But and then it finally hit me. Man, I'm a world champion. This isn't only just San Antonio. Like, this is worldwide. Like, I'm one of the best in my division. You certainly are, my friend. And obviously, it's still kind of early days. Have you got any idea when you're next going to be in the ring at all, or is it still a bit too early? Still a bit too early, but we're looking at early next year. Mm-hmm. Okay. And a big fight that's coming up this weekend, I'm sure you'll be tuning in somehow. Taylor against Prograis. It's a brilliant fight, one I'm so looking forward to. I feel like a kid at Christmas. Who wins for you in that fight, Mario? A lot of Americans don't seem to know too much about Taylor. Yeah, I actually, I favor Taylor. I believe, if he could, just avoid, the big shots, or the big awkward shots that Prograis, that he throws. I believe Taylor, he's a more superb boxer. I think he has a higher boxing IQ. But yeah, I favor Taylor, but Prograis, he's a dangerous puncher. He's real awkward. He has boxing ability as well. We just have to see, how the fights, how it plays out. And my final question for you, I'm asking this to everybody at the minute: Joshua versus Ruiz. How does that one go? The rematch in Saudi Arabia in December to cap off the year. It's been an eventful 2019. Yeah. Well, of course, I'm leaning with Ruiz, but I believe, Joshua, he's really going to come, prepared. He's going to make sure, he goes back and he corrects all the mistakes he made in the first fight. And I believe this one is going to be a more intense fight. Even though that first one, that had everybody out of their seats. But yeah, me personally, I'm leaning with Ruiz again. Yeah, a lot of people agreeing with you. A lot of people. And just finally, Mario, if you've got any closing words just to our listeners before we let you go, if you want to send a final message at all, take it away. Yeah, appreciate anybody supporting, and any new supporters. Well said. Listen, Mario, it's always a pleasure speaking with you, my friend. Congrats once again on achieving a world title, and I'm sure that we'll catch up sometime in the new year, my friend.
We definitely will. Thank you, man.
Okay, and this wraps up episode 210 of the BoxHard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Ayaz Sumra has been Ayaz Sumra. A massive thank you to our two guests on this week's show, the reigning WBA Super-Featherweight World Champion Andrew Cancio, and of course the reigning WBA Super-Lightweight World Champion Mr. Mario Barrios. The Prediction League currently stands at myself in the lead on 18 points. Ayaz and you, the listeners, are joint second with 12 points, but remember there are another 4 points up for grabs this weekend, so best of luck with that. But that is about everything from me. Remember to tell a friend to tell a friend. Thank you all for listening. Enjoy your weekends, people, and we shall see you all again next week.